6. Timewyrm. Ace took a taxi to the Kurfürstendamm. The driver put her down at the smart end, near the old cathedral. Out of some vague idea of security, she hadn't given the actual street. A Sunday morning walk was obviously a favourite occupation with Berliners, and the whole area was full of people strolling along the wide pavements, staring in shop windows, having drinks at the pavement cafes. It looked the way Ace had always imagined Paris. Consulting her map, she found the Kronprinzenstrasse was off the other end of the Kurfürstendamm, away from the city centre, and as she walked along it, the wide tree-lined boulevard became quieter, less fashionable, and more sedate. Kronprinzenstrasse proved to be a quiet, old-fashioned street just over a railway bridge. The address she was seeking was a big old house set back from the road. Cautiously, Ace went up the path to the front door. To one side of the door was a small brass plate. Dr. Felix Kriegsleiter, Aryan Research Bureau. Beneath the brass plate, there was something that looked like an extra-large bell push. Ace pushed it, without results for a while, before she realised you were supposed to pull it. She gave it a good heave, and it came free of its socket, revealing a few inches of rusty wire. A bell clanged somewhere in the house, and with surprising speed the door opened, almost as if someone had been waiting for her to arrive. Not that her reception was encouraging. An extremely unpleasant-looking man peered out at her. Middle-aged and of middle size, he had a high forehead and a perpetually sneering expression. "Don't you know it's Sunday? We're closed." "I've got an invitation," said Ace brightly. She produced the engraved card and held it out. The man took the card and produced a pair of round glasses with incredibly thick lenses. Putting them on, he peered suspiciously at her. "You're not the doctor." "I'm his niece. He was unavoidably detained. He had to go to the Chancellery for a meeting with the Führer," said Ace, feeling a bit of name-dropping couldn't do any harm. "Dr. Kriegsleiter has been called away as well," said the sneering man triumphantly. "Right then," said Ace. "It's just the two of us then. Any chance of a look round?" The man took off his glasses and stood quite still for a moment. He might have been listening for messages from outer space. Then he said, "All right, come in then, if you really want to." He opened the door and stood aside, beckoning her to enter. The voice of the interpreter died away, leaving a terrible silence. Adolf Hitler sat quite still, staring into space. He might have been one of the heroic Führer statues that gazed sternly forward in town squares all over Germany. He was motionless for what seemed an age. Then suddenly he turned to Ribbentrop and shouted, "What now?" Misunderstanding, Ribbentrop said nervously, "I assume the French will hand a similar ultimatum within the hour." "Get out!" screamed Hitler. Ribbentrop and the terrified interpreter scuttled for the door. Hitler seemed actually to have shrunk, cowering like a child behind the enormous desk. He stared at the doctor with wide, haunted eyes. "They told me the English would not fight," he whispered. "Who told you? The Black Coven?" Hitler nodded. "They said it would be easy, like Austria, like Czechoslovakia. What shall I do, doctor?" "You must fulfill your destiny." "My destiny." The interpreter had left the sheet of paper on the desk. Hitler snatched it up and glared furiously at it. "They dare to send me an ultimatum," he whispered. "Me!" He leapt to his feet and screamed, "I shall destroy them. I shall annihilate their miserable little island, now!" Hitler began pacing to and fro, the rage rising in him like a roaring fire, the rage and the madness. Unless it was checked, he might do anything. He might break down completely, leaving the war in more capable hands. He might even, thought the doctor, order an immediate invasion of England. An invasion which might very well succeed. Hitler glared at the doctor, the light of madness burning in his eyes. The curtains of the Chancellery were swirling ominously. A vase flew across the room. One of the swastika shields crashed to the floor. "I shall destroy them all," snarled Hitler. "Everyone, everything shall be destroyed." There was a strange alien quality to his voice, and there was a silver shimmering around his form. "The Timewyrm," thought the doctor. "He's called up the Timewyrm again." The doctor leapt to his feet. Gripping Hitler by the shoulders, he stared deep into those burning eyes, summoning up every ounce of his willpower, forcing his ordered thoughts, his own mental strength into Hitler's confused and seething brain. "Listen to me, Adolf Hitler," he commanded. "Listen to my voice. There is a great power within you, but it must be controlled or it will destroy you. Control it now. Control it with your will." Hitler stared dazedly back at him. "The will," he muttered. My will must triumph. Almost unbelievingly, the doctor saw the madness fade from Hitler's eyes. The storm of psychic energy faded, and the room was calm. Releasing Hitler's shoulders, the doctor returned to his chair. A nervous cough came from the far end of the room. The doctor turned and saw Martin Bormann standing anxiously in the doorway. Behind him hovered the tall form of von Ribbentrop, and behind him the massive bulk of Hermann Goering. The doctor beckoned, and Bormann, the perfect bureaucrat, trotted across the carpet, a stack of dossiers in his hand. My apologies, my Führer, but there are a number of urgent matters here which demand your attention. Progress on the Polish front is far from satisfactory. Warsaw has not yet fallen. Hitler stared fixedly at his faithful servant. Only you can ensure victory, my Führer, said Bormann desperately. It was exactly the right thing to say. You are right, Hitler looked at the piece of paper in his hand. But first, we must deal with this. He raised his voice. Send in von Ribbentrop, at once. Ribbentrop was already on his way. My Führer? Tell the British ambassador that this ultimatum cannot be received or accepted, let alone fulfilled. Hitler crumpled the sheet of paper and tossed it contemptuously on the desk. Bormann, order my special train. I shall leave for the Polish front immediately and take personal charge. You will accompany me. The doctor slipped quietly out of the room. So far, so good. Or so bad, he thought. History was still on its terrible course. World War II was about to begin. I'll show you the visitors' library, offered the caretaker. Ace had a moment of worry as she followed him up the stairs. Was she acting like the daft heroine of some thriller serial, wandering dimly into danger? She told herself there was no need to worry. The doctor knew where she was, or would as soon as he got back and saw her note, and although he was no great charmer, the sneering man looked harmless enough. The house was reassuringly normal as well. It was a solid, old-fashioned building, spotlessly clean and smelling of lavender furniture polish. The visitors' library was a huge, incredibly silent room, thickly carpeted and lined with glass-fronted bookcases. There were display cases of ancient documents scattered about the room, and a big round central table with high-backed chairs ranged round it. In the centre of the table was a huge crystal ball. Maybe they told fortunes on the side. There you are, young lady, said the sneering man, who seemed to have turned friendly all of a sudden. One of the finest collections of Aryan folk material in the country. I'm sure it is, said Ace politely. He moved closer, putting on the thick pebble glasses again and staring deep into her eyes. Tell me about your uncle. Who? For a second, Ace had forgotten the pretend relationship. The doctor. Your uncle, the doctor. Who is he? Where does he come from? What does he want here in Germany? The pale blue eyes, magnified and distorted by the thick lenses, stared into her own, and the questions became more insistent. Tell me, you must answer. Why is the doctor here? Ace could feel the pressure of his mind battering at her own. But pressure was something Ace had never really cared for. It brought out the worst in her. Glaring down at the little man, she snapped, Aren't you being rather rude? If you're so curious about the doctor, you can talk to him yourself. I'm sure he'll be visiting you very soon. With a gasp, the little man stepped back. He took off his glasses and rubbed his hand over his eyes. Please forgive me. I have heard so much about this doctor, you see. Naturally, I am curious. Please feel free to look around. I must get on with my work. With that, he positively shot out of the room. He was trying to hypnotise me, thought Ace wonderingly. So they must be up to something here. Pleased at having been victorious in the curious little encounter, Ace started to look round. The place certainly didn't look as if it was going to be a bundle of laughs. She could make nothing of the ancient documents, which all seemed to be written in some strange runic script. She opened one of the glass-fronted bookcases, took out a leather-bound volume and started to read. It was pretty heavy going at first, but as she realised exactly what she was reading, Ace's blood started coming to the boil. This was racism, expressed as a deliberate philosophy. There were pages and pages about the sacred mystique of the pure Aryan blood and the necessity of keeping it pure and undefiled by alien subspecies and undermen. Ace tried another volume and found more of the same, endless ranting about blood and honour and the sacred soil of the fatherland, the need for keeping the Aryan bloodstream of the master race uncontaminated by lesser breeds. The third book she tried had some very nasty stuff about blood sacrifice, and at this point she gave up in disgust. She had encountered bigotry and racism before, but always in terms of simple brutality, a blow in the face, burning petrol through a letterbox. But to see such ideas written down, not just as an ugly scrawl on a wall somewhere, but in books, to think that such books could be written, printed, published, a whole library of them filled her with horror. She looked round the quiet, peaceful room, feeling that it was filled with concentrated evil. Suddenly she heard voices on the stairs. She ran back to the doorway and listened. The bald man was talking to someone down in the hallway. "She is here now," he was saying. "Not the doctor, just the girl." "And what has she told you?" "Nothing. I tried, but even with the mind amplifier, she has a strong will." "Did you see the Führer? Was the doctor there?" "I missed them both," said the other voice. It was deep and melodious, full of authority and power. "I was delayed at the castle. By the time I reached the chancellery, the Führer was about to leave for Poland. He refused to see me." "And the doctor?" "He seems to have disappeared." Slow, dragging footsteps began mounting the stairs.